So now that the 2020 regular season is behind us, we've reached real nut-cutting time. It's postseason time. 14 teams remaining. Easy for me to say. But you can only have one Super Bowl champion, and in a few weeks we will find out ultimately who that will be. So it's wild card weekend. That means 6 games because the league expanded from 6 to 7 teams in each conference this year. So what's us 8-8 team into the playoffs? But what it does do is it gives us a triple header on Saturday and a triple header on Sunday. If you love NFL football and you love NFL playoff football, by God, you got a whole hell of a lot of it to enjoy this weekend, don't you? We can all sit our lazy fat asses on the couch with our fat asses and we can watch us some football. So let's talk about these upcoming games, this wild card round, and I'm going to give you my picks. And I will say for the regular season, I finished out in terms of picking winners and picking against the spread. I was 173-83 picking straight up winners, 136-121 against the spread. Not bad. Not bad. I'll take it. I'll certainly take it. But season still keeps going. Got to pick some of these games in the playoffs to see how we kind of finish out the year. And I think a lot of you want to know what I'm starting to think about the playoffs in both the AFC and the NFC. So I'm going to start off with the Saturday games. Your first one is Indianapolis, and what could potentially be, who knows, Phillip Rivers' last game in the National Football League. Rivers and the Colts march to Buffalo to take on a very hot Josh Allen-led Buffalo Bills team. You're looking at this Bills team, like, this is a team that a lot of folks are looking at, and if you're trying to calculate who's going to be the threat to Kansas City in the AFC, who presents the most matchup problems, who presents the most difficult test. You know, Baltimore's been playing some really good football lately, certainly, but to me, there's always that concern of, you know, Lamar's kind of fallen on his face against him a couple times. Like, does it feel like the Chiefs own him a little bit? But Buffalo, you know, they could be. I still think Baltimore is somebody to worry about for them. But I look at this matchup, and, you know, Indy didn't exactly make it pretty on Sunday, but they did enough. They won, and they got in. Buffalo, meanwhile, got in and been in, and Week 17, when they didn't have a ton to play for, man, they rolled over Miami. Absolutely rolled. So it's kind of reflected in the money in the spread that Buffalo's a 6.5-point favorite here. And I think, as much as anything else, that's probably the fact that the Bills' record is what it is. But it's not like the Colts are that bad. I mean, they're 11-5 team, aren't they? Like, and they're the 7th seed in the AFC, so the AFC is pretty tough. Like, they're kind of loaded. And you can make an argument for a number of these teams in the AFC being the one that advances to go on to the Super Bowl. I think when I look at this matchup, though, I just feel like the Bills have too many weapons on offense, and they're going to be able to do too much, and then Phillip Rivers is going to be forced into some spots where he's going to make some bad throws in the playoffs, and I just don't trust this Colts team on the road in the playoffs. So give me Buffalo minus the 6.5. Then you've got a divisional matchup, third time's the charm, I guess. The Rams travel to Seattle to take on Russell Wilson and the Seahawks. They split the season series. Los Angeles won the first matchup, and Seattle just recently took the second game. And this is one of these situations, the spread, Seattle's favored by 3.5. I'm assuming, like at the time of me recording this, I'm assuming that Jared Goff is going to play. I didn't see anything to indicate that he wouldn't potentially be back. But if he's not back, maybe that changes the line a little bit. Maybe Cooper Kupp will be back. I'm not sure if he will be or not. But, you know, with one of these things, I don't even know that it matters that much. Because these types of games tend to be, especially with these Seattle Seahawks, they always tend to be interesting and grab your nuts and hold on for dear life type of compelling. You know, when I look at the Rams in theory, I think they're a better defensive team by quite a bit, which certainly is one of those things that should play well here. But if you've got Russell Wilson, you've got DK Metcalf, and you've got, you know, some of the ability that the Seahawks do in their offense to score points and hit some big spectacular plays, like, it might just be a situation where they're going to hit some of those big spectacular plays and the Rams are going to struggle to keep up with them. But looking at this matchup the way it currently set up, I look at this as like a field goal game. It would not surprise me at all if this came down to the last 2 minutes. I think Seattle will have enough to win, but I'm picking the Rams to cover that 3.5-point spread, because just based off of matchups, like I said, unless I'm missing some big news here, I would change my pick a little bit. I like the Rams to cover that spread. And then your nightcap on Saturday night, you've got Tampa Bay traveling to Washington to take on the 7-9 Washington football team under first-year head coach Ron Rivera. Riverboat Ron won a divisional title, again, with a losing record. Son of a gun, it's the second time he's done it. And if you're a Tampa fan, you got to be a little concerned, as it looks like Alex Smith will play in this game Saturday night. This is a Washington team with their front four that can get after Tom Brady. That's got to cause some concerns. Riverboat Ron's been in this position before a few years back. That Carolina Panthers team, when they won the South at 7-8-1, they won their opening round playoff game. So he knows what it takes to be in this spot and get it done. You know, they're going to lean on somebody like Alex Smith, who's played in some big games. They're going to lean on a Riverboat Ron, who's coached in some big games. And meanwhile, when you look at the Buccaneers, like, the spread certainly reflects the assumption that everybody has that they're going to go in there and just march all over them. But this could be a dangerous matchup for them. You know, this could be a dangerous matchup, a team that can get after them a little bit defensively, similar to what the Giants did, if you remember, in that Monday night game. Like, Tampa really struggled with them, and I could anticipate some of the same matchup problems and struggles here with Washington, especially for a good portion of the game. When all is said and done, though, I would fully expect, because if you can hold up against the pass rush of the Washington football team and you can hold up against their defensive line, their secondary certainly can be had. There are big plays to be had there, and I think Tampa will find a way to get enough of those big plays. So give me Tampa Bay to win. I guess I like Washington to cover the 8-point spread, though. But, you know, just as easily with Washington, you could see them go out there and put up a whopping 3 points on this Bucs defense. Switching over to the Sunday games, you've got what I think is a really intriguing one to start off the day. That's Baltimore traveling to Tennessee to take on the Titans. It's a rematch of last year's divisional round with the settings flipped. Last year it was Baltimore was the 1 seed, first round bye. You got Tennessee coming in as the 6th seed, and Tennessee went in there and beat them pretty good in Baltimore. Now you're saying, can Baltimore figure it out and do something a little different than what they did last year in the playoffs? Or is Tennessee in a situation where they're kind of poised to strike and make another run similar to what they did last year? Then you look at their other recent precedent. They played earlier this year, if you remember, and the Titans beat the Ravens in overtime 30-24. So a lot of this history seems to be on Tennessee's side. Like, this is a really big game for the legacy of Lamar Jackson on Sunday. I do not want to just sit there and say that it's only on him as to whether they win or lose. It's not. Like, their defense needs to show up and play well. They got to figure out a way to at least somewhat contain Derrick Henry, which they absolutely fundamentally did not do last year. They got shredded. If you can put a little bit of the clamps on Derrick Henry, though, even though he's had a monster, fantastic season, and you can put more of the game in Tannehill's hands, this Tennessee Titans team is beatable. And especially when you look, because their defense is not very good. So looking at this matchup, I like Lamar in this spot. I like him to go out to Tennessee and get some revenge. So give me Baltimore -3. We get to the one that gives me the most fear and dread. Oh, God. I can't believe they're 8-8 and they're in the playoffs. But it is what it is. They might as well go win now. You got the Bears traveling to New Orleans to take on the Saints. Earlier season matchup. The Saints beat the Bears in overtime, and the Saints didn't have Michael Thomas. Now, the Bears defense was playing quite a bit better, I thought, earlier on in that year, even though their performance against the Saints wasn't exactly the best. But a big key difference then was that Nick Foles was the starting quarterback at that time, and now you're talking about Mitchell Trubisky, and not only is it just a different quarterback in there, but it's really a different approach, a different philosophy, and a different system that they're using offensively. So it's a little bit of a different team. But as much as we can talk about the offense of the Bears, like, it's the defense that concerns me. They didn't have to worry about guarding and defending and covering Michael Thomas the first time. They do this time. The Saints look like they're going to have Alvin Kamara back for the game on Sunday. Now they got to figure out about how to defend him. Oh boy, Danny Trevathan potentially covering him out of the slot. Oh, I'm sure that's going to go well. Yeah, defend Jared Cook, like, that's tough. And especially for the Bears, you look at this matchup and they're potentially going into this game maybe without Roquan Smith, maybe without Darnell Mooney, without, again, Jalen Johnson. Like, those are not just guys. Like, those are important pieces to what the Bears do that could potentially be out of this critical, pivotal game on Sunday. So, the Bears got in. However they got in is how they got in. There's recent precedent there to suggest that you shouldn't just overlook them. That Panthers team that I referenced earlier that was 7-8-1 under Ron Rivera won a playoff game with a losing record, as did those 2010 Seahawks, if you remember, because that's what led to that beast mode run in the wild card round in Seattle against the Saints. Imagine that. It's the Saints. And the Saints have a recent history of kind of gagging it up in the playoffs, and they just got beat last year in the wild card round by a Vikings team where the point spread was similar, and everybody just assumed that the Vikings weren't going to be able to hang with the Saints, but they were a really bad matchup for New Orleans, and New Orleans didn't have a good game. If the Bears can go out there into New Orleans and they can round the ball and pound the rock with David Montgomery, hide Trubisky as much as they fucking possibly can, because as soon as you really want him to make big plays or decisions, that's when it's over. And that defense can get a little bit of pressure on Drew Brees, the Bears have a chance. I'm being realistic here, though. I don't think they win this game. Give me New Orleans minus a 9.5. And then the last one, and again, I'm recording this earlier and then uploading it later. It's just the way life works. Sometimes you have to mass record. You've got Cleveland traveling to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. Again, a divisional rematch. You've got these teams split their matchups in the regular season. Cleveland winning by 2 in Week 17. The COVID impacts could ultimately be what ends up undercutting the Browns' chances here. As you talk about some of the coaches, including head coach Kevin Stefanski, might not be allowed to be there on Sunday. And again, some of this could change between the time I'm recording it and when we actually get to the game on Sunday. They might move this game. They might not. And they might say, tough shit. You got to deal with it. Everybody else has. And we're not going to start delaying games in the playoffs, which I agree. You got to play with what you got at this point. But Pittsburgh's favored by 6. If I knew there was more certainty there for the Browns, and I felt good about Stefanski being there, and they didn't have some of the problems that they have, I would pick the Browns confidently to win this game. I absolutely would. They just beat them. You got to turn around and play them again. Big Ben hasn't been the same. This Steelers team, for a team that was the last team in the league to lose a game this year, they fell off a cliff pretty quickly. And I would not be surprised to see my old skid marks go out there and tell me to stick it because they got rid of that Jeff Jinx. They're not the skid marks anymore. They're the Cleveland effing Browns. Yeah! And when you look at this team and their ability to, I say hide Baker Mayfield, because the more I think you put the game in Baker Mayfield's hands, the more risk you have. And you look at the numbers this year and it kind of bears that out. But with this team, with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, if they got both of those guys and they're able to get them going on the ground, they can Ryan Clock, they can out-physical the Steelers, they can impose their will on this game, and they could absolutely go into Pittsburgh and win. I just worry, if they don't have Kevin Stefanski there, it's going to be too much for them. So I will pick the Steelers to win. I just don't feel that incredibly confident about it. So let me know what your picks are for this wild card weekend round. We'll be back again for more picks next week. Divisional round time, yeehaw. Make sure you smash that subscribe button. Yeah, do that. Follow me on Twitter, all that fun stuff. Can we do that? All right, we're out.